Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, and it is Tuesday, the start of March Madness. So everything is going to be about basketball this month. It's going to be the most popular sport going from this month all the way into when the NBA starts their own playoffs. So before it's not going to be the main segment that I'm going to talk about first. As you can see, my first segment is going to be talking about D'Angelo Russell and how he's on pace to breaking a Laker record, which is honestly very surprising to me because I never would have thought I'd see D'Angelo Russell on the record books for the Lakers. And in the second segment, then I will be talking about March Madness and the brackets, and I will give a much better update. Now, since I actually finished my bracket, I'm going to give a better update on exactly what teams I think are going to make it through, what teams have the best chances of upsetting the other teams, things of that nature. And then in the third segment, we're going to give a quick recap of all of the NBA games that went down the previous night. We also have our fourth segment, so stay in tune for that until the third segment, where I reveal exactly what the fourth segment is going to be. Before I start with the show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead and use the link in the description to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys, puts your comments directly in front of my screen. And with that out of the way, let's go right ahead and get into the first segment, which is going to talk about D'Angelo Russell, and focusing on D'Angelo Russell and the season that he's having with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, for those of you who haven't followed basketball for a pretty long time, D'Angelo Russell was actually drafted by the Lakers to start with, and he played his first season there up until 2017, around that time, and then was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, in that span, the Lakers were the worst team in the NBA. They had the worst record in the NBA. 2016, the only reason why the Lakers were really relevant in 2016 was because Kobe Bryant was retiring that year. And once he retired, the team it kept being worse. Granted, they weren't much better when they had Kobe in his last year, but regardless, the team was not good. They had a very young team. D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram, Larry Nance Jr., eventually Lonzo, all of those guys, they were just they were on the team, and D'Angelo wasn't on the team when Lonzo Ball was on the team. Just wanted to make that clear. And Russell didn't really make his stride in the league until he joined the Brooklyn Nets. This was a great time to be a Brooklyn Nets fan. I remember watching a lot of their games, and in a lot of their games, nothing was really expected of them, which is what made that season a lot more magical because everybody on that team had great chemistry with each other, and they were really fun to watch. When they made the playoffs at one point with D'Angelo Russell, the first season, there was a whole scuffle between Jared Dudley and Ben Simmons. And that was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in a playoff series. I would have never thought Jared Dudley and Ben Simmons would be a rivalry with each other. And that was the team that sort of started that. And the vibe was picked up from D'Lo, was picked up from Jared Dudley, was picked up from everybody on that roster. They were all, I'm sure you guys, any of the guys who aren't casual that watch the podcast, they know exactly, or listen to the podcast, they know exactly the meme that I'm talking about, where the Brooklyn bench is going absolutely ballistic, doing the Tekashi 6ix9ine dance. That was a magical time to be a Brooklyn Nets fan, but I digress. So ever since then, ever since he was on Brooklyn, a lot of things were expected of him. He was expected to perform really well. He also spent some time in Minnesota, but those are really are kind of forgotten when in the grand scheme of things, because he's more famous for his time in Brooklyn, and it just so happens that now he's made his way back to Los Angeles. Now, when he started with Los Angeles, he had a very bad reputation simply because like he was a rookie and he wasn't really living up to the hype that everyone thought that he would, that he was, right? And then he goes to Brooklyn and then completely changes the narrative. Like, ice in my veins has a whole new meaning now when you're talking about D'Lo. And the season when he was on his tenure, his second stint with the Lakers, I'm going to call it his second stint, it's sort of been up and down. Like, he was obviously a much better player, but then once the playoffs started rolling around, it was sort of like, meh. Then, come this season, before the trade deadline, he was not playing his best basketball. I'm sure everyone who has watched this season can agree that his basketball skills were not on par with what was expected of him. Ever since he got put into trade rumors, this man has been on a mission. I have no idea what it was, but he's been playing like he is possessed by the spirit of Kobe Bryant. I'm over-exaggerating, but it's like he's seriously, like, he's completely flipped the switch. He went from putting up mediocre numbers to ending up, like, dropping 26, 29 points in every single game that I've seen on really efficient shooting. So, with all of this in mind, and the playoffs starting to roll around with the Lakers, will D'Lo have some sort of an impact in the playoffs? That is the question. I'll get to that question, but first I might as well, I haven't even mentioned, the record that he's about to break. He's about to break Van Essel's record for most threes hit in one season as a Laker with 183. Now, when you think about how the league has sort of, expanded in the three-point shot, you would assume that the Lakers would be one of those teams to pick up on that trend. But for some reason, they really haven't. In previous years, I sort of understand why they wouldn't do that, but there isn't really, a memorable sniper for the Lakers. And by sniper, I mean a laser three-point shooter. Every single franchise, as of right now, can give you or can name a great three-point shooter. The Brooklyn Nets, they had Joe Harris. They also had Stojakovic. Let me think. The Golden State Warriors, they have Klay, Steph Curry, and arguably Kevin Durant, if you want to count him. But I don't really count him as a three-point shooter. But he is a good three-point shooter. And OKC, or the Seattle Supersonics, Ray Allen. The Pacers, Reggie Miller. And the Hawks, Kyle Korver. If you want to count his stint for the Sixers as well, you could do that. The Cavs, J.R. Smith. The Denver Nuggets, also arguably J.R. Smith. And the Lakers, they haven't really, their best one is, in recent memory, is KCP. There has not been a real sniper on the Lakers squad. And in my opinion, I'm like, why haven't these Lakers adapted yet? The league has already adapted to the spacing. Why is it taking so long for the Lakers to do this? And I understand, part of it, especially when they have LeBron. Come to think of it, it makes no sense how they just don't have a sniper. I mean, now they do because D'Angelo Russell. But before, it's odd how they didn't really have that kind of sniper for the team. Because LeBron James, if any player is going to benefit from having spacing and a 5-out set, it's going to be a team with LeBron on it. And it does not make any sense to me how they still haven't really. It's like they're stuck in the past. And I see this in every single time they do their rotations, because 9 out of 10 times, a lot of their offensive sets have somebody or one or two people in the paint. And in my mind, when I watch it, I'm just like, space out. Give LeBron the space he needs. And I don't understand why. But now with D'Lo playing, as he's got a new nickname now, Deadline D'Lo. And with him on the roster and him shooting the shots like how he's been shooting, obviously he's going to be a very important asset for this team going into the season and hopefully going into the playoffs. Is he going to maintain this type of shooting in the playoffs? Not entirely sure. And the reason why I'm not entirely sure is because the pressure gets to every single one of LeBron's teammates. I don't understand why it always happens. There's always that role player that plays great in the regular season, but come the playoffs, he is not the player that that they're expecting. This happens more so with the Lakers and every other team that he's been on compared to any other star. This essentially only happens to him, and it's ridiculous. Now, I'm being a little dramatic in saying it only happens to him, so I'm going to back up a little bit and say 9 times out of 10 it happens to him, where there is that 1 or 5 role players that just don't do their job. And it results in the team obviously losing, which explains why he doesn't have a good finals record. And part of him not having a good finals record is Golden State and Kevin Durant's move. But that's a conversation for a different time. I'm not going to really talk about that much. But again, with this Lakers team, and I might as well go ahead and look at the box scores of this game because they recently played the Atlanta Hawks. And let's just go ahead and pull the box scores up right now. The final score was 136-105. Definitely a dominant win for the Lakers, one that they desperately needed. Anthony Davis was back in the starting lineup, so I guess that little injury was like, I don't know, slap on the wrist and he's fine. Because he played 31 minutes in this game and ended with 22 points and 15 rebounds, along with just 1 block. But again, if you guys listened on my previous podcast, it was his defensive presence that is what the Lakers were lacking. And now that he's on the team and he's in the rotation, obviously, like, the presence was there on the defense, and that's part of the reason why they were able to get to and have such a dominant lead. D'Angelo Russell led the team in scoring with 27 points, 8 of 14 from the field. LeBron James, 10 for 14, 25 points, obviously very, very impressive because he's the oldest player in the league. Ended the game, D'Lo and LeBron James both ended the game with 10 assists. Now, and all the starters ended the game in double figures. Austin Reeves had 12. Roy Hachimura had 17. This is how the team should be playing. This is how you expect the starting lineup of a championship team to play. LeBron doesn't have to drop a ridiculous amount of points, and everyone else on the team can do their job. One issue, however, that I think the Lakers are going to have to address is the Spencer Dinwiddie issue. He's played 21 minutes, and in this game he only scored 3 points on 1 of 4 from the field. This is far from the production that is expected from Dinwiddie. And if he gets a load of minutes in the postseason, I think this could be a serious problem for the Lakers going forward. Because, again, if he continues to play this bad, and he continues to get a lot of minutes, what good is he? That's just my personal opinion on it. And I'm saying this because I know Spencer Dinwiddie can play better than this. I've seen him on the Brooklyn Nets play better than this. And he's averaging 10 points per game this season. This is not the Spencer Dinwiddie that I remember. This is not him. And he recently had a quote that he was saying that, he had something to say to the media saying that he was still him. I'll go ahead and look at it in a few seconds just to make sure that I got it right. But still, he's stuck it seems as if he's stuck in the past. And I don't understand, why his production hasn't been the same. Now, I believe the quote here is, obviously you do need the generational LeBron, Luka level talent, but after that you're going to need to be locked in, focused, dedicated to the goal. Dot connectors. Dinwiddie said, sacrificial in mindset, and it doesn't mean not aggressive. It just means, hey, you may have to swing, and give up one of your looks, and you may only shoot 4 times. But if you can continue to try to take charge or try to be in the right position and all this stuff, you guys can go far. So it's more so like I understand, like, yes, the role players, they have to take on a much lesser role in order for the team to succeed. But I feel that if a player can produce and score a lot of points, the team should use that. And like the team should utilize that to the best of their ability, because Spencer Dinwiddie is a much better scorer than this. And it's really hurts me to see that it really hurts me to see how the Lakers sort of utilize him. And I'm just like, come on, he's so much better than this. But that's my personal opinion on it, and I'm just looking at the box scores still. I might as well go ahead and reveal the Hawks side of this, since I already talked about the Lakers. Again, no Trae Young, so it does make sense how the Hawks are sort of struggling. They do still have DeJounte, 13 points, however, and 10 assists. Now, DeJounte shot 6 of 18 from the field. Definitely not a field goal percentage that you would like coming in from your number one option now. Jalen Johnson ended the game with 25 points on 20 shots. Again, not that efficient and not something that you'd want for a team that's missing a very important piece to their offense in Trae Young. Then there's Bogdanovic, ended the game with 17. And there was not really much in terms of scoring for the Hawks, which is probably why they ended up losing this bad. They shot 41 three-pointers and only made 9 of them. That is terrible shooting coming in from the Hawks. And you're not going to win in this modern NBA by only hitting 9 three-pointers. That's not going to work. But that's just my take on the whole D'Angelo Russell situation and what to really expect from the Lakers going into the playoffs. If he can continue this play, then the Lakers will go far. But that is a big if. There have been several role players that LeBron has played with where they do not meet the expectations whatsoever, and I'm not going to put it past any of these Lakers to do the exact same thing. That's my personal opinion on it. And with that, we're out of time for this first segment. So now we are going to go into the second segment where I talk about March Madness and the brackets and the first 4 games that are going to be playing tonight, tomorrow, etc. And I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in the second segment, we are going to go right ahead and pivot over and talk about NCAA basketball, where obviously March Madness is going to start tonight, I believe at 6:40. I'm going to pull up the games that are going to be happening tonight, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of those games that are happening tonight, as well as what teams are sort of expected to move forward into the next round. But before I begin with that, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead and use the link in the description to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. So with that out of the way, let's go right ahead and get into our second segment, which is going to be all about March Madness. Excuse me. So, the games that are going to be happening tonight is Howard going up against Wagner. They're two 16-seeded teams, and the University of Virginia going up against Colorado State. The first game that I said was going to be 6:40, and then the last game that I said is going to be at 9:10. And tomorrow, the Grambling State is going to go up against Montana State at 6:40 again, and Colorado, yes, the University of Colorado, where Coach Prime is going to go up against Boise State at 9:10. So those are the matchups that are going to be happening today and tomorrow. And then after those matchups, that's when the main tournament. That's when the main brackets and the main tournament start. So might as well go ahead and talk about the first two games that are going to go down. So in my bracket, I have Montana State going over Grambling State, Howard going over Wagner, Colorado State going over Virginia, and Colorado going over Boise State. Now, I like the potential of Boise State going up against Colorado, and they're both very, very tenacious, trying to get rebounds and things of that nature. But if Boise State 3-point defense on Colorado's 3-point offense wins the day, there might even be, I feel like this game is going to go down to the wire. This is going to be one of those games where it's going to go down to the wire. But I do have Colorado winning this game over Boise State. Now, the players to watch are going to be Isaiah Stevens from Colorado State. This is his fifth year, and unfortunately, he won't sniff any All-American teams because Colorado State is in a play-in game, so they won't be an All-American. But he is a sensational lead guard, and he could just about outscore the entirety of Virginia by himself. That's what it seems like. And in his previous NCAA tournament appearance, he did not really play well in the first round as they lost to Michigan in 2022. But maybe here this could be a redemption arc for him. So with there's not really much that needs to be said because there's no real upset that's going to happen considering how all of these teams are literally seeded in the exact same. Howard and Wagner, they're both 16 seeds. Virginia and Colorado State, they're both 10 seeds. Grambling State and Montana State, 16 seeds, so on and so forth. You guys understand the idea. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the bracket itself. Now, I'm going to start with the East region. So, I have UConn winning it in the first round. There's not really much that needs to be said about that. I said previously UConn is probably the most complete team going into this NCAA tournament. They're the only one seed that ended up winning their division tournament as well. So I think they're just going to keep running away with this. They're going to take that championship win, and then they're going to do it again. Now, next game on that list is Florida Atlantic going up against Northwestern. I have Florida Atlantic winning this game. Next game is SDSU going up against UAB. I have SDSU and winning this game in the end. Next game is Auburn going up against Yale. Judging by how Yale played in their championship game, I really do not think that they have any answer for Auburn. BYU, they're an absolute unit of a team. I've seen them every single time I go out. They're always on the TV, and I really, really like what they have as a team. I really think that they're going to end up making it to the second round. And then this goes into my next matchup where they face Illinois going up against Morehead State. Now, the only upset that I really have on this bracket is Drake going up against Washington State. Now, the game on this bracket that is definitely a must-watch is going to be San Diego State going up against UAB. Now, San Diego State's first-round game last year, they were also the number 5th seed that year. It came right down to the wire, and so did SDU's opener all the way back in 2014 as the number 4 seed. So I really think that this game is definitely going to be the best game to watch going into the tournament, the best first game to watch. I also mentioned that I do have an upset of this one. Like, I did say Drake over Washington State. Now, this one, like, it would barely be an upset. Like, it wouldn't shock a lot of people if Drake ends up being the slight favorite by tip-off. Like, I love the Miles Rice comeback story at Wazoo, and I've got with, like, I mean, I've seen the comeback story, and, like, I understand it's a great story and whatnot, but Darnell Brody can avoid getting into, like, intimate foul trouble. Like, if he can avoid getting fouled, like, getting too many fouls, I feel like Drake would end up winning this competition. Now, the players to watch, Johnny Broom, from Auburn. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great player, and I really think that everyone should go ahead and watch the game going up against Yale. Not just because I'd like to see Yale lose, but also because I really think he's a great talent. And they've got the best. And when Yale faced Kansas, maybe they could shut down Broom. But after getting, like, the number 4th seed, despite spending much of the season ranked top 5 in KenPom, Auburn is going to be out to prove. Like, they want to prove something in this game, if that makes sense. And I feel like when teams, like, they have something to prove, they just turn on that flip switch, and it, like, let's see. Crucial PG in the chat. Who do I have winning the national tournament? Again, I've said this previously on the podcast. I think UConn is going to end up winning this tournament because they're by far the most complete team going into this NCAA tournament, in my personal opinion. They have everyone on there is a viable option. Not to mention, like, they are the only one-seeded team that actually ended up winning their sort of division tournament, conference tournament, however you want to call it. And again, that's just a plus for them, and that's going to, like, keep them moving forward. And I do not have faith in Purdue. They messed up my bracket last year. They lost in the semifinals this year. Do not have any faith in them whatsoever. And I hope my cousin is watching this stream because he goes to Purdue. So good luck. Next, we move over to the South region, I believe. We covered the East region, so we might as well go ahead and, we'll do the South region next. Houston, they're the number 1 seed. I have them even though they lost in the finals in their division tournament, I still have them making it to the next round. Nebraska going up against Texas A&M. I have them making it out. Now, UW going up against James Madison. I actually have James Madison coming out here with an upset going into this one. Now, and then the next matchup, Duke going up against Vermont. Now, I looked a little bit more into it, and I think Duke is going to make it out of this round, but no further than that. The fact that they just don't have Coach K anymore is, like, it's really, like, I don't know how well, like, the team's going to perform under all of that pressure without having someone as great as Coach K to guide them. That's my personal opinion on it. I might be overhyping Coach K, but I saw what he did to the United States Olympic team 2008, 2012, and what he did with those teams, and obviously what he's done in college sports as a whole is nothing short of impressive. But I digress. Next game on the bracket is Texas Tech going up against North Carolina State. I think Texas is going to end up making it past North Carolina State. Next game on the list is UK going up against Oakland. Next game after that, I have UK winning that matchup, excuse me. The next game, Colorado going up against Florida. I have Colorado upsetting the University of Florida. And then there's Marquette going up against Western Kentucky. I have Marquette making it out of that round. Now, the best game, like, that's going to happen, in my opinion, is going to be Florida versus Colorado. Now, if we got Boise State versus Colorado as a possible buzzer beater, why not have Colorado go into the next round in a buzzer beater game as well? Like, I did say that Boise State going up against Colorado is going to be a relatively close game. So if I think that's going to be a close game, why not think Florida's going to be a great game as well? Now, I have Florida losing on a buzzer beater, but obviously since it's March Madness, anything can happen and anyone can make a really bad mistake at a really bad time. Now, the players to watch should be Tyler Kolek of Marquette. Most of the star players listed on players to watch, they're those who just think about liable players and players that completely take over the first round. But in this case, I want to see how Kolek looks when he's on that big stage, if he plays. And he missed the final 3 games of the regular season and the Big East tournament with an injury, but Marquette has sounded optimistic that they will play him when he's in the tournament. So if he's back to his old self, they might even go on a much deeper run. So that might mess up my entire bracket completely. But let's move on to the next region, which is the Midwest region, before we run out of time. Next, we got Purdue going up against Montana State. I swear if Purdue messes up my bracket in the first round again, I am going to absolutely lose it. But I have them making it to the next round. And the game after that, Utah State going up against TCU. I have TCU upsetting Utah State, even though it's not really that much of an upset. They are a 1 seed difference. But I do think that TCU has the best chances of winning. Next, Gonzaga going up against McNeese State. I actually have McNeese upsetting this one as well. This Midwest region right here, it's going to be the bracket of upsets. That's the bracket of upsets for me. And going forth into that, Kansas State going up against Samford. I think Samford is going to upset them. South Carolina going up against Oregon. I think Oregon has a very good chance of upsetting them. Creighton going up against Akron. I actually have Creighton winning this one because I don't even think Akron should be in this tournament, given how they won the tournament because someone else on the other team going up against Akron fouled their player and gave them 2 free throws. That was the flukiest win I've ever seen. They do not deserve to be in this tournament whatsoever. Crucial PG still in the chat. He's saying Purdue losing. Zach Ide is a noob. And I'm not going to say that about Zach because, he is super tall and he is very, very dangerous in the post. But I really don't think that Montana State is going to have anything to really stop someone that tall and a unit like Purdue. They might not make it out of the next round, but they have a good chance of making it out of the first round. Next game is Texas going up against Colorado State. I have Texas winning this since they are the 7th seed. And then we have the game that I'm going to be hooked on watching, Tennessee going up against St. Peter's. Obviously, since I'm from New Jersey, I'm going St. Peter's all the way. That's what my heart is saying. I really think that they could upset again, but I didn't put it on my bracket. That's going to be one of those, I just put Tennessee just to be safe, but that is going to be one of those teams that I hope gets this upset. I really hope that I'm wrong by picking Tennessee, and I would love to see St. Peter's go on another Cinderella run yet again. Now, we're running out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about I'm going to go ahead and talk about the last region, which is the West region, and UNC, they're the number 1 team. I have them making it past the first round and going on to the next. Mississippi State going up against Michigan State. I actually have Michigan upsetting Mississippi State. I know I've said I'm not a big fan of Detroit in that area whatsoever, but I do think Michigan has a great basketball team. St. Mary's going up against Grand Canyon. I have a lot more faith in Grand Canyon than I do in St. Mary's, so I went with them. Alabama going up against Charleston. I think Alabama has the best chances of making it into the next round. New Mexico going up against Clemson. I think New Mexico has the best chances of winning in that first round. And again, I don't know what it is with Clemson. I just don't trust them with basketball. I do not trust them whatsoever. Baylor, the 3rd seed, going up against Colgate. I think Baylor is going to end up making it to the next round, going up against New Mexico after that. Dayton going up against Nevada. I think Nevada has the best chances to upset Dayton. And then Arizona going up against Long Beach State. I think Arizona has the best chances of coming out of that on top. But with that, that's the end of my predictions. So we're out of time with this second segment. And we are going to okay, before I'm done with that second segment, Crucial PG in the chat says, Purdue is bad besides Ide. And that might be true, but you don't really have to be that good when you have someone that tall. All you have to do is be really good at shooting the ball. And obviously, that's a lot of pressure to ask for, which might honestly get to some of these players, which is why I don't have them making it that far in the bracket. I think they're going to lose in the second round. I don't think they're going to lose in the first round because they're going to take that loss in the semifinals. I think they're going to take it a little bit personally, and that's going to sort of drive them to wanting to play better. But then they're going to come back down to earth in the next matchup in the second round, and then they're going to lose out because relying on that 7-footer and then relying on shooters, in college it's a little bit different because the pressure, it seems to get to these college players a lot more than it gets to these NBA players, which really shows the difference in skill gap between NBA players and college level players. So when people say that, oh, I can definitely beat this basketball player in a one-on-one, they have no idea what they're talking about because they wouldn't even last in a college game. But I digress. So, again, we're out of time with this segment, so I will be right back after this short break giving my NBA recap of all of the games that happened last night. So, stay tuned for that.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. To access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, as per usual, we are going to do a quick recap of all of the games that went down the previous night in NBA basketball. And let me know in the comments if you guys would like an NCAA recap as well on all of the games that happened, because that's definitely probably going to be my focus as I'm going to watch a lot of this tournament, because it's definitely the most fun basketball that I see. March Madness basketball, by far the best basketball. That's just my personal opinion, however. Because anything can happen. And it's almost every single game is a close game. But let's go right ahead and talk about the most important things that happened this yesterday and all the games that happened yesterday. So for starters, Jalen Green and Jalen Brunson were named the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Players of the Week. Obviously, very impressive stuff coming in from Green, who if you paid attention to the podcast, I'm not a big fan of him, and I really don't think that the Rockets should build around him because of him being a shot chucker. But when the shots start falling, there's really not much of an argument that could be made because, again, shot chucker, if chances are the shots are going to end up falling. Crucial PG in the chat saying Jalen Green needs that child support money. He's going to start hooping. That might be it. That might be it because his baby mama, his wife, how whatever you want to call it, is having a child, and obviously, he's going to need a lot of money to support that child. So that might be a little bit motivation. But again, I really don't think that's a player that you should build around long term. I just don't agree with it whatsoever. And but with Jalen Brunson, on the other hand, definitely should build around him. He is by far one of the best point guards in this league, especially given his height. I mean, a lot of people say he's undersized. He's the same height as Donovan Mitchell. So, and nobody calls Donovan Mitchell undersized. I rarely heard a comment of Donovan Mitchell being called undersized. And everyone sort of respects Donovan Mitchell. And similar to him, they both play very well in the postseason. They put up good numbers in the regular season. Well, Jalen Brunson puts up a lot crazier numbers in the regular season so far. And then Donovan Mitchell gets most of his praise in the postseason. Now, part of it might be Donovan Mitchell's not in a high market, and that's sort of why Donovan Mitchell doesn't get as much talk as Jalen Brunson, because being on the Cavs, not really that high of a market unless LeBron is on the Cavs. But regardless, like, Jalen Brunson, he's still a great player, same height as Donovan Mitchell, producing the exact same stat. Well, better stats, arguably. And part of that might be his production with the Knicks, since he is their primary scorer. And speaking of the Knicks, they ended up playing the Golden State Warriors last night. Josh Hart became the first player to play 48 minutes in a game. He's putting up LeBron numbers in terms of minutes. And he also ended the game with another triple-double, dropping 10 points, 11 assists, 11 rebounds. So minimal triple-double, but still definitely a very valuable player to this team. Miles McBride, that's a name that you haven't heard about show up on the stat sheet yet. He played 47 minutes and ended the game with 29 points. So might expect to see him get a lot more minutes more often. Now, it's very interesting because this Knicks team ran a very small lineup going into this game. They only had one center, Isaiah Hartenstein. He ended the game with 13 and 10. Very impressive. But they also started 4 guards. They had Jalen Brunson, McBride, Hart, and DiVincenzo. Now, based on how Josh Hart plays, you might not really call him a traditional guard simply because he does everything else that you wouldn't really expect a guard to do. He rebounds the ball, he passes the ball really well, and he gets a lot of the gritty points, the second chance points that teams don't really try to get anymore. And he also plays defense. That's another thing. I don't want to forget about defense whatsoever because that's a very prominent aspect of the Knicks basketball, playing defense. And Jalen Brunson, he ended the game with 34 points, 7 assists, fantastic scorer. DiVincenzo ended the game with 18 points. So the Villanova boys were hooping. That's without a doubt. Now, one player who isn't hooping is Bogdanović. Now, the Knicks recently acquired him in trade, and so far it doesn't really seem like he's been producing as well as I thought he would. Now, this might be because, like, the minutes, like, the Knicks are still trying to figure out exactly, like, who should get what minutes, especially since OG Anunoby is sort of, like, in and out, and Julius Randle still hasn't returned from his injury. So there's a lot of, like, flip-flopping with the lineups, and, like, there's a lot of adjustments that sort of, like, are made on the fly. And Josh Hart, again, he played 48 minutes. I don't expect him to play 48 minutes every single game like that, but again, like, I have no idea what the Knicks want to do. They're the Knicks. So, like, again, I've been talking very good about them, but they're still the Knicks. Now, looking at the Golden State Warriors side, Steph Curry was the only real player that showed up on the offense coming in the starting lineup. Jonathan Kuminga, like, obviously, like, he's the other option, 16 points. But Steph Curry ended with 27 points. And Draymond Green not putting up very good stats in this game. Klay Thompson ended the game with 18 points, and let me just go ahead and look at the shooting percentages. Shot 5 of 10 from the field, but from 3. 5 of 10 from 3, but 6 of 15 from the field. I don't know. Like, I mean, it seems that he's playing better coming off the bench. That's for sure. But is that? Do I think it's a good idea to have him coming off of the bench come playoff time? I'm not sure. Another player that was really good in the scoring sheets was Trace Jackson Davis. Ended the game 9 for 9 from the field, 19 points. Very impressive. Chris Paul also showed up on the stat sheet, 14 points, 6 of 9 from the field. Andrew Wiggins, 2 of 9 from the field, 7 points. Definitely not good production, not something that you want from a player that's supposed to be really good at scoring. And I really have no idea, like, where to put this Golden State team. I don't think they're going to make it far in the play-in. If they match up against LeBron is going to whoop them yet again. I'm not surprised if that happens. Hi, Carpet. What's up? Carpet's just in the chat. I have no idea who that is. But what's up, Carpet? Now, again, like, with this Golden State Warriors team, not entirely sure, like, where their ceiling is. Like, if they go up against the Lakers, I think the Lakers are just going to beat them and end their playoff chances regardless. And there is a shot that, like, you know, they end up winning. But Steph Curry has never beaten LeBron on an even playing field in the postseason. I know a lot of Curry fans are going to get upset at that, but LeBron has never lost to Steph Curry on an even playing field. 2015, Kyrie Irving wasn't in the series, and neither was Kevin Love. LeBron was averaging 39 points per game with a bunch of, I don't want to call them mediocre players. We'll call it that. Compared to the Golden State roster, who had Andre Iguodala, he won the Finals MVP, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. Then, 2016, LeBron beats him when he has the healthy squad that the Cavs were supposed to run in 2015. Then the Warriors get scared. Like people say this was an argument going on Twitter. People aren't afraid of LeBron James. I believe Shaq said this, and like several other players have said, no one's afraid of LeBron. That is not true. And I don't want to turn this into a LeBron rant because I'm sure all of you guys know how I feel about LeBron, but they had to get the second best small forward to join a 73-win team to beat him. That is being scared. I don't care what anyone says. That is being scared. But I digress. Next game on this list is Cleveland going up against the Pacers. Now, Halliburton has not been playing well in these recent games. Now, it might be because he's coming off of a hamstring injury. A lot of people are speculating that he's actually playing through the hamstring injury, so that way he gets paid a lot more money because of the 65 game requirement, because if he misses any more games, then he will miss out on a lot of the incentives that he could get if he didn't miss any games. But regardless, his performances have been hurting the team a lot more than helping the team. I'm going to pull up his stats here in the last few games. Now, over the last 5 games, Halliburton shot 1 of 9 from 3, 1 of 9 from 3 again, 1 of 6 from 3, 2 of 6 from 3, and then 1 of 6 from 3 again. That's 16% from 3. Now, that is not ideal coming from the player who is leading the Pacers in offense, especially when the Pacers literally only have offense. And I keep saying this every single time. If you do not have a good defense to fall back on, if your offense is struggling, you're just not going to win because you don't have that defense to fall back on. And this has been the problem for the Pacers throughout the entire season, and it's going to be a problem going into the playoffs, especially now if their offense can't produce. Now, they play the Pistons tomorrow, so they do get a break going into tomorrow. But Halliburton this game, 14 points, 12 assists. Not producing as well as I expect him to. Pascal Siakam ended the game with 19 points, 12 rebounds. And again, there wasn't really that much scoring coming in from the Pacers, or not as much as you would usually expect. They shot 9 of 38 from 3, 23% as a team, compared to the Cavs, who ended up shooting 37% as a team and ended up hitting more threes. Jarrett Allen, 8 of 12 from the field, 23 points. Karis LeVert, 7 of 15, 23 points. And Darius Garland, he did not shoot the ball very well, 13 points, 5 of 18, but it didn't really matter. There was no Donovan Mitchell in this game, and they still ended up winning. Very concerning for the Pacers. We are running out of time. That is why I'm skimming through a lot of this. Now, the Miami Heat, they lost to Philly without Joel Embiid. And obviously, this is a problem for the Miami Heat. I remember they were ranked top 10 in the power rankings. Yeah, they do not deserve that whatsoever. And I did have if you guys do pay attention to the podcast that I do, I did say that playoff Jimmy Butler was a myth. He didn't end up playing in this game, which is probably why they ended up losing. But still, I feel like this Miami Heat team is definitely better than that Sixers team as a whole, apart from them not having their best players, because neither one of them had their best players. I still think that the Heat should have ended up winning this game. Bam ended the game with 20 points and 13 rebounds. Terry Rozier ended the game with 20 points. He's been proving to be a very, very good scorer for the Heat. But Tyrese Maxey, he ended the game with 30 points and 10 assists with 41 minutes played. Kelly Oubre ended the game with 22 points. Kyle Lowry got his revenge on the Miami Heat, ended the game with 16 points. And again, skimming through this game because I want to bring up the Boston Celtics game going up against the Detroit Pistons. Now, might not sound that much of an important game because, like, oh, it's the Pistons going up against the worst team in the East going up against the best team in the East. Obviously, the best team in the East is going to win. I wanted to bring this game up because Derek White recorded his first triple-double on the Boston Celtics. 22 points, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds. So, obviously, very, very important player to this team. His defense is not only, like, he didn't shoot the ball that well in this game, 8 for 20 from the field, but still, his defense is definitely something that brings a lot of value to this team and is definitely something that should not be overlooked. Now, Porzingis made an appearance in this game, ended the game with 20 points. Jaylen Brown ended the game with 31 points. There was no Jason Tatum in this game, but they didn't really need Jason Tatum in this game because, again, it's the Detroit Pistons. They are the worst team in the NBA. Well, the second worst team in the NBA. I actually think the worst team in the NBA now is the Washington Wizards. But that's just me. I think Cade Cunningham is a better player than Jordan Poole right now. But that's just me. And with that, we're out of time for this segment. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into the second segment where the fourth segment, where I talk about the NBA power rankings that were released yesterday. So I'm going to look at the power rankings of last week and see what I feel should change going into this week. So I will be right back after this short break. And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be looking at the NBA power rankings going into this week. But first, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the power rankings from last week, just so we could see exactly what was changed and which teams are where. So I'm just going to go ahead and ship this over. Yep, we can go ahead. So obviously, as you could see from the major spoilers of these headlines, Denver has not changed whatsoever. And honestly, I didn't really expect them to change going into this week. Even after the loss to the Dallas Mavericks and Kyrie Irving's ridiculous game winner. Because while it was a crazy shot. Like, there's not really much that needs to be said. Because if Kyrie didn't hit that ridiculous shot, they would have got into overtime. It's not something that I think they should be upset about, because if you saw the shot, and I'm sure a lot of you saw the shot, I don't know what answer would you have for that. Like, it was literally a skyhook from the free throw line, and it was contested by their tallest player. There's literally nothing else that could be said other than, like, you tried your best. Like, granted, maybe Jamal Murray shouldn't have taken the shot going, like, early into the shot clock because there was still 5 seconds left. But that's not something that you can really control. Kyrie hitting that ridiculous shot. I did not expect that shot to go in. It was ridiculous. But I think the 1 and the 2 in the power rankings, so Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets, they should not change whatsoever. Those two teams are clear-cut the best teams going into this next week. The Thunder, I did not like how they were ranked number 3rd. I really think they should have been ranked probably a little bit lower than what the Bucks are right now. I also did not expect the Bucks to be so high in the power rankings from last week. So really think that the Bucks should remain. I mean, granted, with how they've been playing now, I think the Bucks should be in the 4th spot, and they should stay in this 4th spot. Now, the next team under, the Clippers, yes, I feel like this is a good tier for the Clippers right now because there have been some games where they don't have James Harden, and then it's on and off with James Harden sometimes, and they still don't have Russell Westbrook coming off of the bench. So with that in mind, it's like, I think 5 is a good spot for them. Next team on this list is the Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves, maybe they should flip-flop with the Clippers, now that I think about it. The Clippers should be 6th, and the Timberwolves should be 5th. Then the next game on this list is Pelicans going at 7th. I actually agree with this. Like, this Pelicans team is they're up and down, but recently with Zion, like, at the helm, they've really been hammering down on oppositions, and I really think that they're going to make a nice playoff run. The Cavs, they should not be in this. They should not be in this in the top 10. I don't think they should be in the top 10. Phoenix should take their spot right here, and the Mavs should move up to 9th over here, and the Heat should move all the way down. That is a fact. The Heat should move down to like the 15th spot at least. They should move that far. And then let me see what other teams could. The Knicks. The Knicks should be in the top 10. That is a team that should be in the top 10 without a doubt. Take Cleveland out of this spot right here, bump everyone else up, and then put the Knicks over in 10. That's what I think the power rankings should look like. But let's go ahead and dive right into these power rankings and see exactly what we have in store. So, obviously, we know that number 1 is going to be Denver because that's what they exposed to us in the beginning. Now, looking at they lost to the Mavericks that previous game on a crazy shot. But before that Mavericks game, they were 11-1 in all of the games that they've played since All-Star break. And that's something that should not be underestimated when talking about Denver and how great they are. And they also hold right now they're 3rd in the standings, but they used to hold the number 1 spot before that loss. So, but again, I still think that this Nuggets team is the best team in the West. They are the team to beat. They are the team that has the most experience, and they do have the best odds of winning, so they could go back-to-back. The Boston Celtics, again, best team in the Eastern Conference. No surprises that they ended up being so high on this list, and they ended up not changing spots. So now let's see if the Thunder end up changing. Nope. The Thunder stayed the same. I somewhat understand that because, again, the Thunder, they are the best team in the West. They do have the best record in the West, even though the games are separated by 0.5. But still, I just don't really have that much faith in this team. I don't understand why. It's just they end up losing a lot of these big games that I really feel like they shouldn't. Well, they lose a lot of like the meaningless games that I just don't feel like they should be losing. And I don't get it because, again, they lost to the Pistons at one point. They lose to all these mediocre teams. And the argument for them is like, okay, well, they're not going to see these teams in the playoffs, so what does it matter? I get that, but at the same time, like, no. That's not really good logic to have when you're looking at the number 1 team in the Western Conference. Next, the Bucks, they stay at 4th, like how I said that they were going to stay at 4th. So they've definitely got it rolling a lot better than what they did at the start of the season with Doc Rivers. But again, this is Doc Rivers. It's not going to last. They're going to go into the playoffs and they are going to lose. I'm sorry. I just do not have faith in Doc Rivers. He does not make any kind of adjustments. You could hear this from all the players that he's previously played with. They all say he doesn't make in-game adjustments. Now, next team on this list. I was right. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they flip-flop with the Clippers. So I think the Clippers are going to end up going a little bit lower on this tier, ending up going at the 6th spot. So let me just go ahead and see. Oh, never mind. Excuse me. The Pelicans ended up moving up a spot going into the 6th spot. So then the Clippers, they should be right after them, right? Okay. I mean, I was half right. I will say I was half right. I'm going to give myself credit for that because I did say that the Timberwolves, they should be in this 5th spot. They've been winning while they still are lacking Karl Anthony Towns. And recently, Anthony Edwards, he just baptized John Collins. Like, you should see that highlight. Good Lord. Straight up baptized him. And like I said earlier, this Pelicans team with Zion, like, Zion is very interesting. He was the most hyped up prospect going into the draft. And now ever since then, he's been like a little bit of a joke, and everyone talks about his weight. Stephen A. Smith is notorious for talking about his weight, saying that he ate a table. And it's like, he is one of the best athletes and one of the best finishers around the rim that I've ever seen. He is a super freak athlete. I really hope he succeeds with this team. But that's my personal opinion on this. Now, let's continue on with this list. So we know the Clippers. I say Dallas. Called it. Dallas is going to go up in 8th, so that means the Suns, they should be 9th. Hopefully the Knicks are 10th. So let me go ahead and see. The Suns, yep. Suns are 9th. Nailed it really nice. Next, going on. Knicks. The Cavs are still over the Knicks. I do not agree with this whatsoever. This Cleveland, the reason why I don't agree with this is because, putting my Knicks bias aside, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they have not done anything to their roster to get better. The Knicks, on the other hand, they did do something to their roster to get better. And when there's, I don't know why I did that, excuse me. There we go, that's a lot better. But the Knicks, they did something to their roster, and they added a bunch of more players that fit their play style, and they fit everything that they need in this team. And given the fact that the Knicks beat the Cavs in order to get to the second round with the team that they previously had, and they've only gotten better since, and the Cavs have not changed whatsoever, it only makes sense that the Knicks are ranked higher than them. Maybe they're directly below them. Let me see. Yep, called it. The Knicks are directly below them. I do not agree with this whatsoever. They should flip-flop completely because the Knicks are still winning games, and they don't even have their second-best player in Julius Randle. And they also had to play a lot of games without OG Anunoby. So with this in mind, why aren't they ranked higher? This does not make any sense to me. But I digress. Now, looking at the standings, that's probably why. Because in the standings, right now the Cavs are a higher seed than the Knicks. But regardless, I get that they're the Knicks and all that, but they aren't playing. They're playing with an injured team. So the fact that they're still winning games, I think, is a lot more impressive. But that's just me. Maybe the next team on this list is... I wanted to say the Orlando Magic so that way I could do the song, Orlando Magic. But no, it's Miami Heat. That's not the Florida team that I wanted in that. Why the Heat? Why do the Heat get so much hype? I really don't understand why the Heat get so much hype because of playoff Jimmy. I really don't. They should not be ranked 12th. They should be down all the way to 15th. Why are they ranked higher than the Kings? That does not make any sense. Let me just go ahead and look at this. The Kings are 6th in the rankings, right? And the Bulls are 8th. Now, the Bulls are playing in a much easier conference. The Kings are not. The Kings are playing in a much tougher conference than the Heat. Why are the Heat ranked higher? I don't agree with this whatsoever. It took a Bam Adebayo buzzer beater to beat the Pistons. Seriously? I don't agree with that whatsoever. The Pacers, they have not moved whatsoever. I really think they're going to stay in that sort of mid-tier because, again, elite offense, perfect offense, everything you could ask for, really bad defense. Now, let me just go ahead and keep going. There it is. There's number 15. Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic. I love that song. And I also really like the team. Paolo Banchero, he's arguably one of the most underrated players that this league has seen right now. He gets zero media coverage, and it is criminal because he's a fantastic player. Obviously, I don't think he's on the same level of, superstars yet. but he's getting there. And the fact that the Orlando Magic are the 5th seed, no one expected the Orlando Magic to be so high. So, Orlando Magic. Golden State is 16th. I don't understand why they're ranked higher than the Lakers. But I digress. That's just dumb. I don't think, yeah, exactly. The Lakers are directly under them. I think that is not a good ranking whatsoever. And let me just go ahead and look at the time. We could still do a little bit more. Why not? Yep, that's where the Sixers belong. They honestly belong a little bit farther down in like the 20th. And I've been saying this previously, but that's sort of what without Embiid, that's where this team is. Houston, I mean, they've gotten better. I mean, Jalen Green they lost Sengun. Jalen Green was having a great week, which is probably why they ranked all the way, like, they moved up one spot. Last week they were ranked 20th, and then now they're ranked 19th. And then after that is the Chicago Bulls. Excuse me. Now, the Bulls, they're a little bit weird because they still don't have Zach LaVine, but they're still a little bit okay given the fact that they don't have Zach LaVine. 33-35 is their record. They look like they're going to make the play-in spot and go up against the Miami Heat going into the playoffs. Actually, wait, no. They're actually looking like they're going to match up the Hawks. Excuse me, I read that wrong. And then potentially match up against the Heat. But, I mean, this Bulls team, there's not really much that needs to be talked about with this Bulls team. Like, they have a roster, and it's a good enough roster to compete. They just can't make them. Crucial PG in the chat. Where are my Detroit Pistons? Let's see. Let me just go right ahead and. I skipped it. Yep, 29th. They moved up one from 30th all the way to. Makes sense, right? So Crucial PG wanted to see the rankings for where Detroit is, and Detroit's ranked number 29th. I think this is like the first time that they've ever moved up in the rankings, and the Wizards are directly below them at 30. Makes complete sense. Both of those teams are atrocious. They're not good, and it makes sense. All of these other teams are also bottom feeders. They're not good at all. The Raptors, they've completely fallen off without Scotty Barnes, and Brooklyn Nets, they're 23rd. Makes sense because we have a terrible coach. We do not have a very good team. Mikal Bridges has also fallen off a cliff, it seems like it, and I don't. Crucial PG in the chat is going, let's go, because, like, yay, they're fine. The Pistons are not the worst team in the NBA anymore. And honestly, like, they weren't. They were in arguments for being the worst team all time, and I think those were kind of absurd. Like, that people were a little bit harsh on the Pistons, and I really didn't expect the Wizards to be this bad. Like, the Pistons, they weren't a surprise to me. The Wizards, they were much more of a surprise, because how do you end up having a worse record than the team that literally just broke the record for most consecutive losses in a season? I don't understand how a team can be that bad. I really don't. And it's all starting with Jordan Poole. It's literally all of Jordan Poole's fault. They're giving him all of this money for him to not play defense and not even play his best offense. I'm sorry to say, but it's like that's what he is. He doesn't play defense. He's lazy on there, and he's a walking highlight reel. Now, it might come off as a little bit harsh, but that's the impression that he gives off. He doesn't pay attention to the coaching suggestions. He just goes out there and he tries to get a highlight and tries to cook whoever's in front of him. He almost tried shooting the basketball on the ground. What is that? His rear end was literally sitting on the ground, and he was contemplating on shooting the ball. I've said this before on previous podcasts, but it's what is going on through your head other than yourself? It's not winning basketball. And it really gets me upset when players like him, who have that talent, aren't playing winning basketball and aren't mature enough to realize that now is the time for them to be playing winning basketball. I think I'm more mature than him. And he's older than most of the people that I know. But I digress. I mean, again, he's in a situation that I'm not, so maybe shouldn't be talking this harsh on him, but still, that mentality is not something that you should be having, especially when you had the reputation of being the third Splash Brother. It literally got to his head. But with that, those are the power rankings out of the way. Didn't really need to touch up on much, simply because it's like things that we expected going into the power rankings. I called a lot of them, so not really that surprised. I don't think that the power rankings are going to change from this week going on into next week, but we'll go ahead and see, because this entire week going to be all March Madness. I'm going to be watching the game from 6:40 all the way up to 9. That's going to be great. But with that, tune into these games. They're definitely going to be fun. And that is it for the show. And that's the only time that I have. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as I said previously, like in the first and the second segments, I'd like to remind everyone to please use the link in the description below to tip and to donate, or the link that is displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show. And like I said earlier, thank you once again. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't